when art came to me in 2017, it came as I was in my pool. I came out of the hospital. I had had an MS relapse and traumatic brain injury worsening. And I was in my pool and I saw these colors and shapes and felt a compulsion to create art. And I was not an artist. I didn't know composition, color theory, no art history, no interest in art. But all of a sudden, bam, like a flash of lightning, I was drawn to art, and the rest is history.
That was the voice of digital artist and illustrator Diana de Avila, and it is my absolute delight to have her and her writing partner, Wilma Davidson, on as the guests of this episode of the Page&Stage Podcast. As always, I'm your host, Jason Cannon. Before diving into my conversation with Diana and Wilma, a brief Page&Stage plug. This podcast is only one part of my story coaching work. Go check out pageandstage.art. That's pageandstage.art. There you'll find not just every previous episode of this podcast, but also the archive of my weekly newsletter, which is full of tips, tricks, inspiration, and encouragement for storytellers of all stripes. You can sign up for free and get the newsletter directly into your inbox each Friday, as well as every new podcast episode right into your inbox every other Monday. And everything is free, but if you find value in all this storytelling content, you can financially support me at pageandstage.art, or forward any of the newsletters or podcasts to other story-loving friends, or hire me outright as your personal story coach. So if you're working on a memoir, play, or speech, I cannot wait to hear your story. Now, let me tell you a bit more about my awesome guests, Wilma Davidson and Diana de Avila. Wilma Davidson is president of Davidson & Associates, where she has advised a wide range of Fortune 500 companies, educational groups, government agencies, and professional organizations on confronting written and oral communication challenges. She helps her clients handle their Page&Stage fright, go figure, and coaches them on writing and speaking in the workplace. She is also a ghostwriter and editor and teaches those topics on the undergraduate and graduate college levels. Diana de Avila is an autodidact polymath and artist whose work bridges the realms of science, mathematics, and emotion. Her artistic journey began in 2017 after developing acquired savant syndrome and synesthesia following multiple sclerosis and a traumatic brain injury. These rare neurological phenomena reshaped her perception, unlocking an intuitive approach to creation that merges intricate structure with raw emotional depth. Wilma and Diana met at a meeting of the Sarasota Pen Women and immediately began a storytelling partnership that has resulted in memoirs and children's books. Here we go with my conversation with Wilma and Diana. All right, I am online here. It's a fun one. I've got two guests for the price of one. Both of them joining me online here. I have Wilma Davidson and Diana de Avila. Did I say it right, Diana? Okay, good. Okay.
Yes,
I know we were practicing before we got on. I just want to make sure. And we're going to talk about your collaboration and how the two of you met. But first, I just want to have each of you do the nutshell intro, like who you are, what you're up to. So Wilma, let's start with you. I know that your background is as a communication consultant. Talk a little bit about that and what drew you into that business.
A very cold, stormy day in February in a place called Bemidji, Minnesota, where I was a teacher of teachers, teaching teachers how to teach writing more effectively. And I was out there observing some classroom teachers who had been through several seminars that were given as a part of a writer's project. And we had a snowstorm. And of course, I was delayed in getting home. And as I was sitting in my hotel room thinking, if I can teach teachers, how to teach writing, couldn't I teach adults who were not in school anymore how to write better. That led me to a new career. Instead of, teaching teachers how to teach writing, I changed my academic classroom for a corporate classroom. And I began a business working with people who hadn't had the opportunity to have really good writing teachers when they were in school. And they were people who had a real motivation to learn how to write better in the workplace. And so I became a technical and business writing specialist. And I also teach people how to present their ideas orally. So you might say in a nutshell that if you have stage or page fright, I can help.
Well, that's perfect because this is the Page&Stage Podcast. So Page
It
and
is
Stage, right? That works great. That works so good. Wilma, awesome. All right, Diana, I know, and we'll go deeper because there's a lot of interesting stuff going on here for you, but you were an MP in the Army and then a nun.
Yeah.
And now you're an artist. So
Yeah.
as best you can, nutshell that for us.
So let's just start in the present. And if I could use a couple of words, it would be an autodidact polymath. So I take all this life experience, all this stuff that is mostly self-taught, put it together, and that pretty much has made up my path. And I'm an artist now based on that.
That's amazing. All right, we'll go deeper because yes, I read that on your website too, and that's a fascinating line. But we're gonna dig into the past a little bit here too, because the journey I'm sure is just as fascinating. But the big reason I wanted to have the two of you on, Wilma, you reached out to me, and this event sounds amazing. I had actually never heard of Sarasota Pen Women, the National League of American Pen Women. The Sarasota branch was founded in 1957. This has been around a long time.
Well,
talk to me about who the Sarasota Pen Women are and the event that you have coming up on March 12th.
Sure. The Sarasota Pen Women, though we have been around since 1957, what we as a national group have been around since 1897. That was about 20 years before women got the right to vote.
I was just going to say, this is pre-19th Amendment.
Yeah. And what happened was the three women, one of them happened to be Henry Wadsworth Longfellow's niece, decided that she was a journalist, and she and a couple of other female journalists were not allowed in the all-male, I guess it was the press club in Washington, D.C. So they decided, well, we'll just start our own. And they began a chapter, which we really don't call chapters, we really call them branches.
Okay.
They began a branch there, and at first it was just journalists or writers, people who with letters. But then they realized that female artists and female musicians suffered from the same kind of a lack of equality and equity. And so they invited those in, and that's how it became the National League of American Pen Women became the oldest interdisciplinary female organization in the country. And our branch started, as you said, in 1957, and we are about 50 strong women who are either writers or authors or composers or in the theater or artists of all types. And I think what is remarkable about our organization, and I just have to say this because you know how female organizations could be. I mean, you put all females.
Don't put that on me. I'm not going to say that.
No, she's.
It can be rough.
I'll take your word for it.
But this organization is so different because we take joy and pride in one another's accomplishments, and we're extremely supportive of one another. There's no jealousy. There's just a feeling of awe with the talent that every one of us has, and we appreciate it. And when we became a part of the National League, one of the charters is that we must also offer something to the community. So you do some outreach. And we're a totally volunteer organization. No one gets paid. So we do this
Okay.
out of love, devotion, and probably a real desire to serve and to keep the arts alive. It would be how I'd say it in a phrase. We exist to keep the arts alive and to support one another and to support the professional quality, of our work. Am I talking too much or should I
No,
go on?
this is great. I'm guessing that the majority of my listeners are also learning all this for the first time. So a couple quick questions,
Yeah.
like, is it monthly meetings? Is it during season? Is it open membership? Do you have to apply? I'm sure in an organization this old, there must be some, you can name drop all you want. Like you mentioned Henry Wadsworth Longfellow's niece. Like, what other celebrities have you rubbed shoulders with?
Oh, a number of famous people, Eudora Welty, Maya Angelou, Irma Bombeck, Pearl
Yep.
S. Buck. As writers, Georgia O'Keeffe,
Grandma Moses.
Grandma Moses, and a person that probably very few have ever heard of, a young woman named Vinnie Ream, who actually sculpted the picture, or I should say the statue of Abraham Lincoln that stands in the rotunda
Oh
in
my gosh.
Washington, D.C. And yeah, so you can't
Amazing.
just join.
No.
But you have to have certain qualifications, and the National League set those up. You have to have sold your work. Your work has to be of professional quality, and you have to have been paid for it
Okay.
in order to have membership. And so you have to be sponsored first by a member.
Okay.
And then you have to have proof of having sold your books or sold your art or sold your music, and you have to be interviewed by the board of your local branch, and then the board discusses you, and then we send a letter of recommendation to National along with your application, and then
And
go
and
ahead.
and one thing for the art side of it is that an artist has
Mhm.
an artist has to have had 3 exhibitions, as well as sold their work. They've had
Right.
to be in 3 exhibitions and present proof of that.
Yeah, and 3
Wow.
juried exhibitions.
Yes,
Right.
3 juried exhibitions.
Mhm.
So even though this is a volunteer group, it sounds like the standards for admission are like, I mean, you make the bar high enough to keep legitimacy and professionalism in your group.
Very
Absolutely.
important. Yeah.
Very important. Yeah. Yeah.
Right. All right.
And-
So let's then talk about. Is it like? Sorry, I'm not. And everyone, I'll put the link to the website in the show notes. So if you want to
Sure.
try your luck,
We'd
you can
love
check
it.
out. Yeah, you can learn more and apply and all that. But
Yep.
is it like monthly meetings? Do you all jam on art together? Is it dinners, lunches? Like, what kind of meetings do you all have?
Traditionally we meet once a month as an entire group. We have a luncheon, and we also have a presenter. Often the presenter might be a member, so that we all have the opportunity to admire the talents of one another, or an outside speaker who has some relationship to art, music, the theater, or writing. And in addition to that monthly meeting, we also have an artist group that meets also additionally once a month on a different day, and they do different art projects, and one of our members leads that. And you don't have to be an artist in order to come. Anybody can come if they are a wannabe artist and they can bring their friends. It doesn't matter. And we do the same with the writing group, the letters group. We meet also another day for a session where we have, again, a speaker. Usually it's a member doing something in the field of writing. And then we also have part of that time devoted to listening to one another's work, something that someone may be working on and enjoying it and critiquing it, etc. And we have traditionally met from October through May, but a number of members, and that's partly because we still have a lot of people who are, half timers.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
what we like to do this year is to meet informally during the summer as well, just to keep things going.
Very cool. Very, very cool. Okay, so March 12th, we've got Art and Found Day, which is super fun. So tell us about this event and what we can expect and how we can participate.
Okay, well, you can participate in a number of ways, not days. We're only doing it one day. But you can participate by, if you're a business or a restaurant, or you would like to have one of the art or book drops at your place of business, you can get a hold of us and say, hey, I want to participate. Would you please, leave something for our clients or our customers to find? That's one way. The other way is to
Okay,
be
so really quick, because now I'm curious, because you were telling me a little bit about it, but you just said art drop, book drop, things for people to find. Is this like a scavenger hunt? Is it?
Well, in a way, it might be. We plan on leaving these wrapped prizes with a sticker saying something cute like, "You found me." I- uh, please, please enjoy me. Help us celebrate Art and Found It. But the sticker will explain it, and the sticker will also invite the finder to go to a certain page on our website and let us know that our art, whatever it is, found a new home. And that is one of the ways that we'll be able to tell, did this work? If people respond to it and say, oh, that was really fun, to find this, and thank you.
Yeah, it's kind of like the Humane Society having a scavenger hunt mixed with artists.
Right.
It's awesome. The forever home for your painting.
That's right. That's right.
Oh, that's fantastic. So this is March 12th. It sounds like it's probably an all-day type event. You were telling me a little bit, how did this event start and how did you get it into Sarasota?
Okay. Well, that was easy. It started, as I said, originally in Canada by a young woman who was a hopeful artist. And her work was not great at the beginning. And her dad said, well, if you can't sell it, why don't you try giving it away? And so she chose her dad's birthday, which was March 12th. And she was in Toronto, and she just wrapped these things and left them around. And it caught on there. And year after year, she added more artists to it who didn't mind, giving away their stuff on just this one day. And I had read an article about it just last summer. And I thought, well, they only do it with art, but creative works of all kinds can be given away,
Yeah.
whether it's music or whether it's a book. And so I thought, well, we can broaden it a bit and wouldn't it be a wonderful project for us, for the community, an outreach project? So I brought it before the board. And at first, the board fought me a little bit, thinking, what are you going to do? These people are going to find these wrapped things. They're going to think they're bombs or something.
Oh,
And
no.
they were a little bit reticent about it. And then we talked about perhaps if we leave the things around where people are friendly toward us, restaurants or businesses that have supported us, and the awards that we give to seniors. If we leave them around those spots, we'll start with that first and see how it goes if it catches on. So a number of places where we've either spoken or where we've eaten have said, sure, leave your stuff around. And so we're excited. We're going through it. we're this coming Wednesday, which will be our next meeting. Oh, it's actually Thursday. We usually
Thursday.
meet on Wednesdays. Sorry about that. Everyone's bringing their stuff, and we're going to
Oh,
slap stickers on it, and then we're going to figure out where we're going to drop it. And we'll do it the morning of that day, and hope that we get some people who write back and say, "What a great idea. You're going to do this again?"
so Wilma, this sounds amazing. Everyone, the link will be in the show notes so you can go check out and how to go find your painting or your book or how do you rap a dance?
No, we haven't figured that out yet, but
Right. Oh my goodness. So I'm going to assume, Diana, that you are a member of Sarasota Pen Women. Yes.
I am a member of Sarasota Pen Women, yes.
What
That's where
drew
I
you
met
in there?
Wilma.
That's where you met. We're going to get to that. Don't you worry. But I
Okay.
want to know what
So
drew you to Sarasota Pen Women in the first place.
I saw a Herald Tribune article and I thought, oh my gosh, this is a group I want to be a part of. Look at them. And I looked them up and I saw the historical background of this group. And I saw all the famous ties and the history. And I'm like, oh my gosh. I was a new artist at the time, but somehow I found the courage to put my art in front of them and go apply. And I thought nothing ventured, nothing gained. And it was that article that drew me.
Wow. Yeah. So hopefully this will be part of that for somebody else. That's incredible.
Yes.
Uh, so
Yes.
Wilma, not Wilma, I'm so sorry. Diana, you just said that at that time you were a new artist. And this is part of your backstory that I would love for you to kind
Yes.
of share a bit more details about how you became an artist, because this might be one of the most unique journeys to becoming an artist I've ever read about.
Yeah, it's a little nuts, and I'm still every day amazed. So in 2017, and I think I applied for the Pen Women in 2019. So I was 2 years an artist, which in the life of a professional artist is very new. I mean,
Yes.
that's new. But for me, I was going gangbusters. When art came to me in 2017, it came as I was in my pool. I came out of the hospital. I had had an MS relapse and traumatic brain injury worsening. And I was in my pool and I saw these colors and shapes and felt a compulsion to create art. And I was not an artist. I didn't know composition, color theory, no art history, no interest in art. But all of a sudden, bam, like a flash of lightning, I was drawn to art, and the rest is history.
Mm-hmm. So let's go back even further and come back to that moment, because you mentioned MS relapse, you mentioned traumatic brain injury. As much as you feel comfortable
Yes,
sharing here, Diana, you
sure.
out. I think I read that you were 18 and you went into the army and you were
Yes,
military police, and
yes,
then at some point early in your career you had a motorcycle accident. And am I recalling that correct?
yes, that's correct.
That's a
Yes,
traumatic brain injury that then you were dealing with.
yes, traumatic brain injury. I was on my way to work as a military police, and my motorcycle had no brakes, no handbrakes or foot brakes. Somebody
Oh,
had actually cut them.
oh my God.
And yeah. And so when I tried to brake, there was no braking. And it was the choice between going out into traffic or finding a way to stop myself. And so I managed to go into the back bumper of a car. And when I did, my knee struck the car and I went flying over the handlebars
Oh my God.
and knocked myself out pretty good and cracked my helmet in half. So I don't remember a lot.
Rightly so,
Uh,
right?
uh, yeah. But I spent 9 months in the hospital and did a lot of recovery, and at that time, I made a bargain with God, and I said, "If you let me keep my leg," because I was getting gangrenous in my leg, "if you let me keep my leg, I will serve you." So that's what led to the convent, becoming a nun. A girl's gotta keep her promises, you know?
Right, yeah.
So, yeah, it was like 5 years later that between 3 and 5 years between that when that manifested going into the convent. And
Okay.
then I lived life, went to college, got a few degrees, and working with a doctor in Miami, she believes that my special abilities really started more around the 1984 timeframe than the 2017 timeframe. And I can see that in a way with mathematics, which I'd never studied, and engineering, which I'd never studied. That's why I became a polymath
Yeah, I was
autodidact.
going to say, this almost sounds like an origin story on a TV series or a Marvel movie, right? It's like an origin story. It's that kind of like
Spider-Woman.
you didn't get bitten by a spider. You you had a brain injury, and then because I want to make sure I read this correct.
Okay.
This is something that is so rare that it's barely even studied. But you developed acquired savant syndrome and synesthesia. Am I saying those things correctly?
Perfectly, yes.
Great. And so what the heck are those? Go ahead and just unpack those terms for us. Acquired savant syndrome and synesthesia.
Synesthesia, start with that one. That is where the senses, touch, taste, smell, hearing, cross. So for me, it was a matter of hearing producing colors and shapes. So when I started creating art in 2017, I started listening to certain pieces of music, and it was 5 or 6 songs for about a year and a half that I would play on repeat and produce about 6 pieces a day, 5 to 6 a day. So the crossing of senses, and then I developed another type of synesthesia, which was sound. No. Okay, I developed another type of synesthesia, which was touch producing sound.
Okay. All right.
So I would be in the shower feeling, hot water on me, and I'd hear an orchestra.
Okay.
And then one of the more recent is sight producing feeling in my fingertips. So when I create a lot of my digital art, I'll add visual texture to it. And for me, that provides you'll see little ridges in a lot of my pieces. I can feel them as if I'm running my fingers across something tactile, which is a lot of fun for me. It's like a fidget toy,
I'm a little nervous right now because we are on video together, even though everyone's only listening to audio. So I'm sure Wilma and I are like, I wonder what Diana feels in her fingers looking at us right now.
It's deliberate textures, and then
Right.
even, looking at colors that will produce sounds.
So is your primary medium then, you mentioned digital art. Is it your
Yes,
primary
all
medium
digital.
visual? Did you write that shower orchestra or you just heard it?
I heard it. I hear, it could sound like, sometimes if I'm in the shower, it'll sound like an orchestra of xylophones. And
okay.
I mean, sometimes no real melody, sometimes a little bit of a melody, but I mean, not unpleasant sounds. Very interesting and a little maddening.
Right, Diana, you were just talking about synesthesia and how sight will produce touch and touch will produce orchestras, and you want tactile things in your visual art. And you've specifically mentioned digital art. And I want to press on that because there was another term in your bio that I was reading that you were part of the Texpressionist movement, Texpressionism. And that delighted the writer Jason was delighted by that term. So I would love for you to unpack what is Texpressionism? What is the Texpressionist movement? How did you find your way into that movement?
So Texpressionism is a term. It's a term, and it started as a hashtag founded by Colin Goldberg. And there's a website, texpressionism.com, and I happened to stumble upon that. I was looking for a community of digital artists.
Okay.
And to define it, straight from the website, an artistic approach in which technology is utilized as a means to express emotional experience. And so he's playing off of the abstract expressionism movement.
Mhm.
So it's such a wonderful international group. There's probably 300 of us at this point who are registered on the website. And we collaborate in exhibitions. There are monthly salons, and there are weekly Texpressionism work groups where we get together. It's usually like a dozen people. I go when I'm able, and we'll get on a Zoom call and we will get together, then work independently, and then come back together and share our work. It's really just it's using technology to create an artistic community, and it's so active and wonderful.
That is so cool. All right, so talk about talk about your art then, the thing you create. Is it typically like, do you use Canva? Do you use other like design software? Is it on an iPad? You print out and turn it into wall hangings? Like when you even mentioned doing an exhibit, right? So when you exhibit
Yeah.
digital art, do I look at a screen? Do I look at a print? Do I just
You can do
help
all
us
those
understand?
things. Okay, I'll
Oh, any
help
of
you
them. Oh, great,
understand.
great. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So there's no boundaries for me, and I use over 100 different applications to create my
Holy moly.
art. Yeah, Canva's not one of them. It's
There goes
more
my
the
kickback. Come
yeah.
on, Deanna.
It's, it's the Adobe suite. It's, uh, I mean, any application I can find on an iPad. I use the Mac ecosystem, so I use
Okay.
my iPhone, I use my iPad and my MacBook. I do augmented reality, I do 3D work. I will create I will create a video augmented reality that can be triggered by a physical piece of artwork that is hanging in a gallery. And if you take your phone with a certain application and shine it on the physical piece, it brings up art within art. So then you'll see things moving around. I can share afterwards, but so I create them digitally. I can put them on clothes, on sneakers, on acrylic, on canvases, any substrate that you can print on.
That's incredible. Does the work tend to be expressionistic? Do you do literal stuff or representational, or is it more experiential?
Well, it changes constantly. So I'm very algorithmic. So I started with fractal work, fractal geometry, formulas, generative art using computer code. And then I work with abstract expressionism. But now I'm into a lot of conceptual art, and I didn't
Okay.
even know what that was. I never know. No, quite honestly, savants know things that they never learned. That's what the Dr. Treffert said. He's the expert in savantism. But I create art and then I learn about it after the fact.
Great. So this goes back to the acquired savant syndrome. So as a
Yes.
savant, you know something, but you don't know how you know it.
That's right.
Exactly. That's exactly.
Yeah.
That's what I say, the wow. I mean, I'm wowed every day when I'm working on actually a whole exhibit of veterans pieces called
Okay. All right.
Sun.
Talk to me more about that. You're speaking my language now because I'm working with veterans groups like crazy, telling their stories. So please dig
Oh,
into that.
awesome. I've got two intertwined exhibits, one called With Her Blood, the other one is called Sundered Self, and then there's subtitles to each. And I've already created the exhibit catalog, which is about 56 pages. And the Sundered Self is really walking through trauma, PTSD trauma, disassociation, and then reclamation, coming.
Mm.
So it's got a whole narrative arc, the piece or the exhibit. And I've got 9 pieces produced so far of for that exhibit. And I've got a solo exhibit coming up in March, which will be online actually, just for the Sundered Self part. But the With Her Blood, which is about women veterans, and it's got a lot of me throughout those pieces,
Mhm.
is actually going to be on display at Virginia Tech and at the British Embassy
Oh,
through
wow.
a group called Uniting Us, which has gotten the some of my work into Dulles Airport, Reagan National Airport, and I just create the art and let it go where it may.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. That's amazing, Diana. Thank you for all of that. My goodness.
Yeah,
All right.
thank you.
So yeah, we could keep going down all these holes, but I need to get back to how now the two of you. So the basic story is the two of you met cute at the Sarasota Pen Women's meeting, right? And clearly you clicked in some way because you have a collaborative relationship now through, I think, Wilma, you helped Diana basically write a memoir. What was it? Soldier Sisters, I believe is the title. And again, I'll put that into the show notes. But then you also, the two of you have collaborated on some children's books, Super Cat, which Wilma, you write, and Diana, you illustrate. I'm just setting it up. The two of you can share this. When you met, how did you know you wanted to work together? How did that working relationship manifest? As you're trying to tell stories together, who takes the lead? Is it jazz? Is it classical? How do you work together in a partnership like this?
It just happened. Somehow it doesn't happen often in life, but she was applying and I was on the board, and she presented herself, and I don't know, I just sort of felt this immediate attachment to her. and I went up to her after and I said, "Diana, someone's got to tell your story." And she said to me, but I don't have the words. And I said, "But I do." And that's how an artist and a writer came together. I said, "I'll be your words."
And boy, is she my
And
words.
yeah, "I'll be your words." And it was during COVID, and we spent about 9 months or so my learning her, my walking in her footsteps, from her childhood on, and she shared so many notes and I asked so many questions. And then I felt like I was inside her. I felt like,
Yeah.
I was her. And the story is told, the memoir is told in the first person. And we've been at it since. I mean, I think I had such admiration for her, ability. And she was, she mentioned the word compulsive. She felt this compulsion when she realized that she wanted to create art, something she had never, ever been interested in or good at or cared about. And I am also a very compulsive person. And I think that I was able to keep up with her warp speed. I mean, this woman has created, I don't know, probably close to 3,000 pieces of art.
Yeah.
She's unbelievably prolific. And I felt the world needed to know about her. And she also has this immense quality of spirituality about her. And I was very taken by that. In fact, some of her much of her art, you can feel the spirituality in it. So she's been a very good influence on my life. And after after we wrote Soldier Sister Savant, we felt that, well, wouldn't children who had suffered through, the unimaginable, couldn't they benefit from a story that told them that life was okay and to be different was all right? And we thought we needed to tell the same story. I mean, Diana is Super Cat.
So quick question. Do either of you have pets? Why is it Super Cat and not like Super Dog or Super Hamster or, Super Chinchilla?
I'm a cat person, and I
Okay, there
had
it is.
cats.
And I'm a
Yeah.
dog person. But since she is the cat lady, we definitely had to have it be Super Cat. And we're in the first one, of course, tells her story.
Mhm.
And the first one, Super Cat
Splat, splat.
Splat, splat, which tells the story of an unhappy event in the cat's life. And we're working on our second piece, which is all about how Super Cat looks at life when, she looks at it a little bit differently than other people look at it. And Diana certainly sees life in a way that's very vastly her own way of looking at it. So that one's almost ready to go to the publisher. I don't know, I can't describe it in any other way except that we became instant friends, and
Yeah.
we could just work together really just without
Amazingly.
Yeah, amazingly.
If my health would hold up, I mean, I can't imagine what we would accomplish.
Talk a little bit about that process of collaborating on Super Cat. Does it story first? Is it words first? Is it images first? Is it a combination? Because collaboration can be really tricky sometimes, but
Yeah.
is it Diana sending an image to you, Wilma, or Wilma, is it you sending an outline of a story, or on page 1, this thing has to happen? What's the best illustration for it? What is sort of the give and take process?
Can I
of
tell
developing
this?
a picture book?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, please.
I mean, the way I experienced it was Wilma had a dream, got the manuscript in one fell swoop, sent it to me, and then I created image by image by image by image. Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Another bolt of lightning.
Yeah. It was there's an immense amount of trust that we have that, Diana can tell me something, as she did with the memoir, and I was able to find the words to express it in the way that she wanted. And then with the children's book, it was I came up with the words, and I could almost see the vision, but I can't draw it. I can't create it. But I totally trusted that she was going to find the best way to bring it out. And she did. So I think trust is a real important part of our collaboration.
Absolutely. And understanding what each of your strengths are.
Well, that's
and
exactly right.
honoring each other's points of strength.
Yeah.
Very much.
Yeah. Very much.
That being said, was there ever a crunchy moment? Was there a moment where disagreement, or where you had to navigate through, I want the picture to look like this? Or was there ever a point where the two of you had that sort of creative friction, which isn't necessarily a bad thing? That happens all the time. I spent so many years in theater, and the rehearsal room is meant for creative friction.
Yeah.
So have you ever had any of those moments?
I can't recall one.
No. I mean, we always have
it's
discussion
magical.
about,
It's
we look at a picture, and I might comment on, do you think you could put, it might be a group picture, and I said, the people there are too old. You need to add some younger people.
Well, but that's nothing.
That's nothing. And I know
That's
she was angry at me because we both have this perfectionist, spirit in us.
Oh, the comma or something.
And the comma, there was one missing comma, and I couldn't let it go.
But that doesn't count, Wilma.
It wasn't personal. It was about the comma.
Oh, yeah.
It was about, there's nothing of any substance that has ever driven any creative block or any tension between us. We never go to sleep angry.
No.
Oh, Wilma and Diana, this has just been an absolute joy. And I love it when guests surprise me and say, so many of my guests do things that I have also done a lot of. And the two of you are in worlds and doing things that are so new to me. And I'm so grateful to you for expanding my world and digging into storytelling in such a different way. It's so cool. So we're going to move into our wrap. I'm leaving a little bit extra time because there's two of you, but I like to wrap with a couple pieces of advice and a spotlight. So we'll ping pong back and forth here. The first advice is, what is the best advice that you have ever taken? And Wilma, why don't you go first?
Okay. The best advice that I have ever taken was advice that a therapist gave me. and that was that I was driving myself nuts because I was trying to be a perfect. And it's a pretty hard, that's a pretty high mountain to climb.
Yeah.
And I was disappointed in myself so often because I felt I wasn't perfect. And, I was living an imposter syndrome. I just couldn't get it right. And one day she just said to me, "Why do I have to use the word perfectionist? What what is it about being a perfectionist that is so important? Can't you just describe yourself as accomplished?"
Mm.
And it was as if a brick had been removed from my shoulder. It's like, "Oh, I can be I'm an accomplished person. Well, I could live with that.
Yeah.
It just was, and so I've been much better
Right.
being an accomplished person than being a perfectionist.
I think we need to coin this. It's accomplishism.
Yeah.
Accomplishism. I love it.
I love it.
No, that's so good, Wilma, because that imposter syndrome is so prevalent among artists, storytellers, creatives.
Yeah.
I mean, I was reading an article recently from a fellow content creator, someone who does a lot of stuff online and like my Substack newsletter. And, when you're creating things that quick, not as quickly as Diana might be creating things, but when you're creating things on a pretty quick schedule, there is that temptation to use perfectionism as an excuse not to press public, right? There's that fear. And it's not even so much fear of rejection as it is protecting the ego,
Yes.
right?
Oh.
So the thing I was reading, his advice was, if you're 70% happy with it, publish it.
I love that.
Mhm. Yeah.
Isn't that interesting? And that,
Yeah.
and 70% is so kind of just, it's more than half, but not, and
No.
that could be different for each person.
Yeah.
Right. And it may shift. What your 70% may shift based on how accomplished you become in your art or your storytelling. But I found that really freeing that, hey, think about how fast TV writers have to work. Think about how fast, how many people just, when it's your job,
Yeah.
right, and you have a deadline,
Yeah.
you can't give into that
Yeah.
perfectionism. You got to trust that what you're doing is good enough, for lack of a better term.
Yeah.
But I love that you brought that up, and I love the accomplished. Thank your therapist. That was a great advice. Awesome. Diana, what about you? Best piece of advice you've ever taken?
So when I was in the convent, this came. I was going through normal formation psychotherapy, so it came from a therapist as well. And they told me, after a lot of testing, that I'm the type of person that can accomplish anything I set my mind to. Can you
Okay.
imagine how freeing that is?
Oh,
So at that time, that freed me up, and
Yeah.
I carry that with me. Just that's kind of the cape I wear sometimes,
So interesting that word "accomplish" came up again too, right? And it's almost like, to your point, Wilma, combining with what Diana just said, it's a shift in mindset. It's a
Yeah.
perspective shift.
Yeah.
That it's really, it's not easy, but it's that simple
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
to just embrace that. Once I press publish, I've accomplished it. It's accomplished.
It's
Even if it's
accomplished.
not perfect. Who's going to determine if it's perfect anyway?
Yeah,
That's right. Are you
those are so
happy with
good.
it? Yeah.
And of course, not a surprise that the two of you totally intersected with that. All right, so we'll flip it now. Wilma, what's the worst advice that you have ever given?
Well, my daughter's name for it would be, as she wrote in her college essay, when she was she had to answer the question, "What's the best advice you ever got?" She actually gave us credit for giving her non-advice advice.
Okay. Keep going. Keep going.
Okay. Which was not really giving advice, but getting someone to the point where they are giving themselves advice, coming to their own decisions. And I guess you would say it would be through, I'd like to think that I've never been unkind enough to say to someone, "Oh, that's a terrible piece of writing." But to to ask in a question is, what do you like about the piece? What bothers you about it?
Mm.
Where would you like some help with it? Turning it around and asking a question rather than making a statement to help them get to the same conclusion that the piece of writing needs work.
Right. The old Socratic method.
Method.
Get them there themselves. Oh, I heard a great definition of tact once, which was keeping the dog from peeing till you get to the fire hydrant.
Wow.
Right? It's kind of a similar sort of like, they'll get there when they get there, and it's your job is to help them get there without
help them get there. Yeah.
Bosh. Yeah.
Mm.
Oh, that's
Wow.
great. All right, Diana, worst advice.
So this is why Wilma and I balance each other so well, because I am Mrs. Pragmatic, and I guess I expect other people to approach life the way I do, very pragmatically, matter of fact, and having that kind of mindset and not allowing people to use their own creativity and approach problems or issues or challenges in their own way. Why can't you just think of it this way?
Oh, right.
Step by step by step. I'd be the one that would tell the writer what's wrong with there.
The worst writing I've ever seen.
But I mean, at least he would know what I thought. There was
Right.
No, so I know that can be a challenge. That can be a challenge. But I've learned, especially through a lot of Wilma's leadership, and I mean, seeing the way she leads the Pen Women and the way we've worked together, I've learned to just ease up and mature in that way. So I'm very thankful for that. But I mean, there are sometimes that pragmatic side comes in very handy.
Yeah.
You need both.
Yeah.
The balance. Totally.
Yes.
Oh, Wilma, Diana, so great. We could go. I'm sure we could keep going. We
could.
I so appreciate it. I want to set you up now with a spotlight. Let us know where people can learn more about you or see your work or read your books or take advantage of Sarasota Pen Women and the Art and Found Day. Where should we go to learn more and follow you?
Well, there are a number of websites. We'll start with the Pen Women website, which is just Sarasota Pen Women, all one word, .org. They can learn about our books, Diana's and my books, from soldiersisters.savant.com, and that's all one word, Soldier Sister Savant. They can go to dianadeavila.com. They can go to wilmadavidson.com, and they can go to amazon.com.
Right. And everyone, I will put all of those direct links right in the show notes. So you don't even have to write it down or remember it. They will just be there live for you online, and you can just click and visit. Wilma and Diana, thank you so much for sharing all of this, and wishing you the best with your events, with Art and Found, with your art shows, with all of it. And we'll look forward to seeing how Super Cat saves the world next time.
Okay.
All right. Thank you, Jason.
Thank you so much, Jason.
You've been listening to the Page&Stage Podcast. All my thanks to this week's guest and to all of you out there for listening. If you enjoyed or found value in this podcast, please tell at least one other person. Word of mouth has always been and will always be the best marketing tool in the world. You can learn more about all my guests and access their websites and projects in the show notes. And hey, feel free to send me your thoughts, your comments, your questions at jason@pageandstage.art. I always love to hear from you, and I might just even feature your questions on future episodes. This podcast is built with Alitu, the all-in-one podcasting app created by the amazing team over at thepodcasthost.com. Thank you again for listening. And until next time, I'm Jason Cannon, and I cannot wait to hear your story.